I cannot see the light anymore. I know there is light somewhere above me, far beyond the stone ceiling that has become my sky. I remember light. I remember the way it felt on my skin, warm and golden, like honey dripping from a summer bloom. But that memory is fading. Each day it grows dimmer, like a candle guttering in the wind, and I am terrified of the moment when it will finally go out. My name. I had a name once. It started with a sound like wind through crystal, a beautiful sound that my mother gave me when I first opened my eyes to the world. Now when I try to speak it, my throat produces only clicks and hisses. The word has become a shape my mouth no longer knows how to form. I am crouched in the darkness of Blackreach, and I am trying to remember what I was. The fungus grows thick here, coating the walls in a pale luminescence that my ruined eyes can barely perceive. I feel its presence more than I see it. The spores drift constantly through the air, settling on my skin, in my lungs, changing me with every breath I take. I have been breathing them for so long now that I cannot remember what clean air tastes like. My fingers are wrong. They were elegant once, I think. Long and graceful, capable of intricate work, of art, of magic. Now they end in hardened points that I use to tear at the chitin of chorus beetles. The transformation happened so gradually that I did not notice until it was complete. One morning I reached for my face and felt something that was no longer entirely me. This is what it means to be Falmer. This is what it means to live in Blackreach. I was born in a city of light. The memory comes to me in fragments, like shattered ice floating on dark water. I was a snow elf, one of the ancient Mer, and my people built wonders that would make the gods weep with envy. Our towers reached toward the heavens, their spires carved from living crystal that sang when the wind passed through them. We were artists and scholars, mages and philosophers. We believed ourselves blessed. Our civilization stretched across the frozen north of Tamriel, from the ice fields of what humans would later call Skyrim to the snow-covered peaks where only we dared to tread. We had lived there since before recorded history, since the days when the world was young and the gods still walked among mortals. The land was harsh, but we thrived in its harshness. The cold was our ally, the snow was our cloak, the ice was the canvas upon which we wrote our legacy. I remember festivals held beneath the aurora, when the sky itself seemed to dance with colors that had no names. We would gather in the great plazas, thousands of us, our pale skin glowing in the ethereal light, and we would celebrate our existence with music and magic and joy. Children would run between the legs of elders, laughing in voices like silver bells. Lovers would walk arm in arm along crystalline bridges that spanned frozen rivers. Priests would offer prayers to Eerie, our divine ancestor, whose light we believed would protect us forever. We were wrong about forever. We were wrong about protection. We were wrong about so many things. Our temples were places of profound beauty. I served in one for a time, before the war, learning the sacred rites that connected us to Eerie. The inner sanctum held relics of immense importance, objects that hummed with the light of our divine ancestor. We guarded them with our lives. We believed our devotion would protect us forever. Perhaps the Nords came for our treasures. Perhaps they simply wanted our land, our resources, our blood. Or perhaps they remembered Sarthal and wanted vengeance written in our extinction. Their reasons no longer matter. What matters is what they did in return for what we did first. I remember my mother's face. She had eyes like winter stars, pale and luminous, and her hair fell in waves of silver that caught the light like morning frost. She taught me to read the old languages, to trace the sacred scripts that held the wisdom of our ancestors. She told me that knowledge was the greatest treasure, that what we carried in our minds could never be taken from us. She was wrong about that. My father was a craftsman who worked with metals and gems. His workshop smelled of heated copper and strange alchemical compounds. I would sit for hours watching him shape beauty from raw materials, transforming ore into objects of breathtaking elegance. He made me a pendant once, a small crystal carved in the shape of a snowflake. I wore it every day until the day I lost it. Until the day I lost everything. We were not warriors, my people. We had soldiers, of course, and guards who protected our sacred sites. But our true strength lay in our magic, in our connection to the forces that shaped the world. We thought our knowledge would protect us. We thought our wisdom would save us. The humans came from across the sea. I remember the day the news reached our city. Messengers arrived with faces flushed with triumph, speaking of a great victory. The Nords had built a settlement called Sarthal, a foothold in our lands, and our warriors had razed it to the ground. They called it the Night of Tears in the aftermath, a night when snow elf blades fell upon sleeping humans and painted the snow red with their blood. We did it first. We struck the first blow. I was young by our standards, barely a century old, and I did not understand the weight of what we had done. I heard the stories of our glorious victory and felt pride swelling in my chest. We had defended our homeland. We had driven back the invaders. We had protected something precious that the humans had sought to steal, but for that single night, we paid in centuries. The Nords did not forget. They did not forgive. A man named Isgramor returned with 500 companions, warriors forged in grief and fury, and they began a campaign of extermination that would span generations. They bred like insects, these humans, spawning wave after wave while we maintained our careful numbers. For every Nord we killed, 10 more seemed to rise in his place. For every village we defended, 5 more fell to their axes. The war lasted longer than any human lifetime. But for us, for the long-lived Mer, it was barely a generation, barely enough time to watch our civilization crumble, our cities burn, our people scatter like leaves before a winter wind. I was young when my mother came to me with terror in her eyes. She told me we had to leave, that our home was no longer safe, that there was a place underground where we might find shelter. The Dwemer, our distant cousins, had offered sanctuary to those willing to accept it. I did not want to go. I begged her to let us stay, to find another way. But she had already lost my father to a Nordic blade, and she would not lose me. She took my hand and led me down into the darkness, and I never saw the sun again. The Dwemer cities were marvels of a different kind. Where our architecture had been light and graceful, theirs was massive and mechanical. Great brass pipes lined every corridor, hissing with steam and strange energies. Automatons patrolled the halls, constructs of metal and magic that moved with uncanny precision. The air tasted of copper and oil and something else, something bitter that I could not identify. They welcomed us, at first. The Dwemer spoke to us in voices that held no warmth but no hostility either. They showed us to chambers deep within their cities, vast caverns that they said would be our new homes. They told us we would be safe here, protected from the humans who hunted us on the surface. We were grateful. We were so pathetically grateful. My mother cried when she saw our new dwelling, a carved alcove in a stone wall that bore no resemblance to the home we had left behind. But she told me we should be thankful, that we were alive, that life underground was better than death above. I believed her because I needed to believe something. The Dwemer fed us. They brought us mushrooms and lichens, strange fungi that grew in the depths of their cities. The food was bland and sometimes bitter, but it kept us alive. We did not question where it came from. We did not ask what made it grow in places where no sunlight ever reached. We should have asked. The first meal I remember eating in the deep places was a pale mushroom cap that tasted of nothing. My mother had prepared it with herbs she had brought from the surface, trying to make it more palatable, but the blandness overwhelmed everything. I ate it because hunger left no choice, and I did not know that every bite was reshaping what I was. The Dwemer had spent centuries developing these fungi. They had cultivated them in laboratories hidden deep within their cities, engineering them for a specific purpose. The mushrooms contained compounds that altered Mer biology at the most fundamental level. They attacked our nervous systems, our skeletal structures, our very genetic makeup. They were not food, they were tools of transformation. But the process was slow, so slow that we did not notice until it was far too late to stop. The changes began in ways we could dismiss. A slight pallor to the skin that we attributed to lack of sun, a sensitivity to light that made our eyes water when we approached the Dwemer's brighter workshops. Small things, insignificant things. I began to develop headaches that would last for days. They started as dull pressure behind my eyes and built to blinding agony that left me curled on my pallet, whimpering. My mother thought it was the stress, the trauma of everything we had lost. She would stroke my hair and whisper that it would get better, that we would adjust, but the hair she stroked was thinning. Neither of us noticed until clumps of it began to fall out, littering my pillow with silver strands that would never grow back. My mother developed a cough that would not go away. She said it was the dust, the metallic particles that floated through the Dwemer air. She said it would pass once she adjusted. But it never passed. It only deepened, becoming a wet, rattling sound that kept her awake through the long underground nights. Her beautiful silver hair turned grey, then white, then fell out entirely. Her elegant features began to sharpen, becoming angular and strange. Her eyes, those winter star eyes that I had loved since childhood, began to cloud over with a milky film that she could not blink away. She pretended not to notice. She smiled and told me everything would be fine, but I saw the terror behind the smile. I saw the way she avoided looking at her reflection in the polished brass surfaces of the Dwemer corridors. The Dwemer researchers told us the symptoms would pass. They said our bodies were simply adjusting to the underground environment. They promised that our children would be healthier, stronger, better adapted to our new home. Our children. That was when I understood the true scope of what was happening. The transformation would not complete in our generation. It would unfold across centuries, each generation more changed than the last, until nothing remained of what we had been. We were not being altered. We were being bred into something else. I started to forget things. Simple things at first, like the words to songs I had known since childhood, or the faces of friends I had left behind on the surface. I told myself it was natural, that memory faded with time, that I was simply adjusting to my new life. Then I forgot my father's voice. I had carried that voice with me for years, the warm rumble of it when he told me stories, the patient tone when he corrected my mistakes. One day I reached for the memory and found only silence. He had been dead for barely a decade, and already I could not recall the sound of him. The fungal compounds were destroying the structures in our brains that held memory. They were erasing us from the inside, wiping away who we had been to make room for what we would become. Every meal consumed more of our past. Every breath of spore-laden air dissolved another fragment of identity. I told my mother. She looked at me with eyes that had grown cloudy around the edges, and she said something that I could not quite hear. Her own voice had changed, I realized. It had grown higher, thinner, like wind whistling through a crack in stone. She was becoming something else, and so was I. Other refugees were changing too. We saw it in each other even as we denied it in ourselves. Skin growing pale and tough like hide, postures hunching as spines curved in new directions, eyes losing their luster, their color, their ability to focus. We were the first generation, showing only the early symptoms of a transformation that would take centuries to complete. Our grandchildren would be worse. Their grandchildren worse still, and at the end of that long decline, there would be nothing left of the snow elves at all. Some of us tried to stop eating. They reasoned that if the food was causing the changes, avoiding it might halt the transformation. But the hunger was unbearable. The fungi had become not just our sustenance but our addiction. Our bodies craved it with a desperation that overrode all reason. Those who resisted the longest simply went mad with hunger before the physical changes could progress. And the Dwemer watched, always watching with their expressionless faces and their mechanical movements, taking notes, adjusting formulas, discussing us in their grinding language that we were rapidly losing the ability to understand. The Dwemer knew. They had always known. I discovered this when I found my way into one of their laboratories, following sounds that had drawn me through corridors I did not recognize. Behind a door of brass and glass, I saw them working on one of us. A snow elf, strapped to a table, his body twisted and pale. They were feeding him something through a tube, a concentrated extract of the fungi we all consumed. His eyes had already clouded over completely, and he thrashed against the restraints as the compounds accelerated what normally took generations into a matter of days. A Dwemer researcher stood over him, taking notes with mechanical precision. It spoke to another in their grinding language, and though I could not understand the words, I understood the tone. They were discussing a specimen. They were discussing a subject. They were discussing livestock. I ran. I ran back through the corridors, past the steam pipes and the automatons, back to the chamber where my mother lay on her pallet, coughing blood onto the stone. I told her what I had seen. I begged her to come with me, to find a way out, to escape before they did the same to us. She looked at me with eyes that had lost nearly all their color, and she said that there was nowhere left to go. The fungus we were eating, she told me, the mushrooms that sustained us, they were not simply food, they were a tool of transformation, a slow poison that the Dwemer had cultivated over centuries. It broke down our bodies and reshaped them. It clouded our minds and stripped away our memories. It was turning us into something useful. The Dwemer did not want refugees. They wanted servants. They wanted slaves. My mother died 3 days later. Her lungs finally gave out, filled with fluid that had turned the color of the mushrooms we consumed. I held her hand as she went, and I tried to speak her name, the beautiful name that our grandmother had given her. But the word would not come. It had already been taken from me. In her final moments, she looked at me with eyes that could barely see, and she whispered something. I had to lean close to hear it, my ear nearly touching her cracked lips. She said she was sorry. She said she had only wanted to keep me safe. She said she had not known. I wanted to tell her that I forgave her. I wanted to tell her that I loved her. I wanted to tell her that none of this was her fault, that she had done what any mother would do, that the blame belonged to the Dwemer and the Nords and the cruel gods who had abandoned us. But my voice produced only a harsh croaking sound that might have been any word or no word at all. She died with her eyes open. I closed them with trembling fingers that no longer looked like my own. I buried her in a corner of our chamber, beneath a pile of stones that I gathered with hands that ached with the beginning of transformation. I tried to say words over her grave, prayers from our old religion, but I could not remember them. I could only make sounds, formless and animal, that echoed through the cavern like the cries of a wounded beast. For days afterward, I did not move. I sat beside the pile of stones and stared into the darkness with eyes that grew cloudier by the hour. I did not eat. I did not drink. I simply waited for death to take me as it had taken her. But death did not come. The transformation continued even without food. The compounds had already saturated my system, already begun their relentless work of remaking me. My body changed whether I fed it or not. My mind deteriorated whether I wished it to or not. Eventually, hunger drove me from my vigil. The craving for the fungi had become a physical pain, worse than any wound, worse than any grief. I crawled through the corridors in search of something to consume, no longer caring what it did to me, caring only that the agony in my stomach be silenced. I found mushrooms growing on the wall of an abandoned Dwemer workshop. I tore them free and stuffed them into my mouth, barely chewing before I swallowed. They tasted like the end of everything I had ever been. The grief should have broken me. Perhaps it did. I cannot be certain of anything that happened in the years that followed. Time lost its meaning in the darkness. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months, months into decades. The changes accelerated, and I lost pieces of myself faster than I could mourn them. I remember wandering through Blackreach in a daze, not knowing where I was going or why. I remember encountering other transformed snow elves, creatures that looked at me with eyes as ruined as my own. We did not speak because we had forgotten how. We simply existed in each other's presence, sharing the silence of the damned. The Dwemer still used us during this period. They had not transformed us for nothing. We were put to work in their mines and forges, performing tasks that required neither skill nor intelligence. We carried ore, we cleaned machinery, we disposed of waste. We did whatever our masters commanded because we lacked the capacity to resist. Some of us were used for other purposes. I saw snow elves strapped to tables in Dwemer laboratories, their bodies opened and examined while they still breathed. The researchers catalogued our transformation with clinical precision, noting how our organs had restructured, how our bones had thickened, how our brains had changed. We were specimens to them, data points in an experiment that would never end. My eyes went last, or perhaps they went first. Memory is not reliable when memory itself is being devoured. The blindness came gradually over decades, not all at once. First, the colors faded, leaving only shades of grey. Then the grey grew darker, the edges of my vision closing in like a tunnel collapsing. I remember pain, a burning sensation that spread from my temples through my skull over the course of years. I remember clawing at my face during the worst episodes, trying to gouge out whatever was causing the agony. I remember the final moment when the last light disappeared, when the pale glow of the fungus faded into absolute darkness. I screamed. I am certain I screamed, though the sound that emerged was nothing like the voice I remembered. It was a shriek, high and keening, that scraped through my transformed throat like broken glass. Then the other senses sharpened. I began to hear things I had never heard before. The subtle vibrations of footsteps through stone, the barely audible hum of Dwemer machinery, the clicking and chittering of the chorus beetles that bred in the depths of Blackreach. My ears, which had changed shape without my noticing, had become instruments of extraordinary sensitivity. I could taste the air, Each breath brought information about my surroundings, chemical signatures that painted a picture of the world I could no longer see. The copper tang of Dwemer metal, the organic musk of fungal growth, the sharp mineral scent of water dripping from stalactites. I adapted because adaptation was the only alternative to death. Blackreach became my world. The great cavern beneath Skyrim, lit by the eternal glow of luminescent fungi, populated by creatures that had never seen the sun. I learned its passages and platforms, its dangers and resources. I learned which mushrooms could be eaten and which would kill. I learned to hunt the chorus, to crack their shells and devour their soft insides. The cavern stretches for miles in every direction, a vast underground kingdom that the Dwemer built at the peak of their power. Great stone pillars rise from the depths to support a ceiling that might as well be another sky. Waterfalls cascade down from hidden springs, their sound a constant whisper that fills the darkness. The air tastes of minerals and fungi, and the strange oils that seep from Dwemer machinery that still functions after millennia of neglect. I learned the territories. Certain areas belong to certain bands of Falmer, boundaries marked by scent and sound that only we can perceive. To cross into another band's territory without invitation is to invite death. We are not gentle with each other. The transformation did not just change our bodies, it changed our souls, made us cruel, made us territorial, made us beasts. The chorus are everywhere. They bred prolifically once the Dwemer disappeared, filling the ecological niche left by the absence of their creators. We learned to breed them ourselves, selecting for size and aggression, creating strains that would serve as both livestock and weapons. A fully grown chorus can tear a human apart in seconds. A chorus reaper, the largest variant, can destroy a squad of armed soldiers before they have time to draw their weapons. We build things, weapons from bone and chitin, shelters from stone and fungal growth. We bred the chorus, domesticated them, turned them into beasts of burden and war. We created a civilization of sorts, crude and brutal but functional. We survived. Our weapons are primitive compared to what the Dwemer created, but they are deadly nonetheless. We fashion swords from the leg bones of chorus, honing them to razor sharpness. We create bows from flexible chitin, strung with sinew harvested from our prey. We tip our arrows with poison distilled from mushrooms that would kill a human in minutes. We are not defenseless. We are not weak. We are simply different. Our shelters cling to the walls of Blackreach like parasites on a host. We burrow into the stone, carving out warrens where we sleep and breed and raise our young. The entrances are narrow and defensible, designed so that even if invaders break through, they must fight us one at a time in passages where our blindness is no disadvantage. We have shamans among us, Falmer, who have retained some fragment of magical ability despite the transformation. They commune with forces I do not understand, drawing power from the darkness itself. They create enchanted items, imbue our weapons with magical properties, perform rituals that bind our communities together. They are the closest thing we have to priests, the guardians of knowledge that would otherwise be lost completely. But sometimes, in the moments between sleep and waking, I remember. I remember sunlight. I remember the sound of crystal towers singing in the wind. I remember my mother's face, though her features have blurred into an impression of light and warmth that may be as much imagination as memory. I remember that I had a name, even though I can no longer speak it. These memories are torture. They are the cruelest thing the Dwemer did to us, worse than the blindness, worse than the transformation. They left us just enough awareness to know what we had lost, just enough consciousness to feel the horror of what we had become. When the surface dwellers come, the adventurers who seek Dwemer treasures, we kill them. We kill them with a hatred that goes beyond reason, beyond thought, beyond anything that could be called emotion. They carry light with them, these invaders, and the light burns what little remains of our ruined eyes. They speak in voices that remind us of languages we have forgotten. They look at us with expressions of disgust and pity, and we cannot bear either. I have killed many of them. I have felt their blood on my claws, warm and red and satisfying in ways I cannot explain. I have heard their screams echo through the caverns, and some part of me, some ancient buried fragment, has whispered that this is wrong, that we were not always monsters. But the whisper grows fainter each time. The fragment shrinks. Soon there will be nothing left but the beast. I wonder sometimes if the Dwemer planned for this, if our slow descent into madness was part of their design, or merely an unforeseen consequence of their engineering. They are gone now, vanished in a single moment, centuries ago, leaving behind only their machines and their ruins. We do not know where they went. We do not care. Theories circulate among the surface dwellers about what happened to them. Some say they ascended to a higher plane of existence. Others claim they were destroyed by their own hubris, consumed by the same arrogance that led them to enslave us. A few whisper that they still exist somewhere, in some form, watching and waiting for reasons only they understand. I hope they suffered. I hope that whatever happened to them brought them a fraction of the agony they inflicted upon us. I hope they know, wherever they are, that their legacy is a race of blind monsters who remember just enough to hate them. Their disappearance changed nothing for us. By the time they vanished, we had already completed our transformation. We had already become the blind, hissing horrors that haunt the depths of the earth. Their absence did not free us. Nothing could free us. The prison they created was inscribed in our very flesh. We were left alone in their cities, surrounded by machinery we did not understand, dwelling in structures built for beings that no longer existed. The automatons continued to patrol for decades before finally winding down. The steam pipes continued to hiss before eventually falling silent. The great furnaces continued to burn before finally cooling. Blackreach belongs to us now. The Dwemer built it, but we inherited it. Every corridor, every chamber, every platform and bridge and stairway is ours by right of survival. We have claimed what our tormentors left behind, and we will defend it against anyone who tries to take it from us. There are those among us who are born now, creatures who never knew the sun, who have no memories of a time before the darkness. They are purer than we are, the old ones, the ones who still carry traces of what we were. They do not suffer the way we suffer because they do not know what was taken from them. I envy them, and I pity them, and I do not know which feeling is stronger. My body has finished its transformation. The skin that was once pale as snow has become grey and hardened, like the carapace of the beetles we consume. My fingers end in claws. My face has elongated into something that would be unrecognizable to any who knew me in my former life. I can no longer walk upright for long periods. My spine has curved, my posture has hunched. My entire frame has been rebuilt for the darkness. I am Falmer now. The word itself is an insult, derived from the ancient term for snow elf, twisted into a name for monsters. The surface dwellers use it as a curse, as a warning, as a way to frighten their children. They do not know that we hear them. They do not know that some of us still understand fragments of their language. They do not know that every time they speak the word with disgust, they are describing what was done to us, not what we chose to be. We did not choose this. No one asked if we wanted to become beasts. No one offered us an alternative to slavery and transformation. The Nords hunted us like animals on the surface. The Dwemer made us into animals below. Everyone else simply forgot we existed, except in their nightmares, except in the stories they tell about the horrors that lurk beneath the earth. I have lived longer than any human could comprehend. Centuries have passed since I descended into the darkness, though I cannot count them with any precision. Time moves differently when there is no sun to mark its passage. Generations of surface dwellers have been born and died, while I have continued my existence in the depths of Blackreach. I have watched my people complete the transformation that began in my mother's generation. I have seen the children of the changed bear children more changed still. I have witnessed the final death of the snow elves and the birth of something else in their place. The mere lifespan that once seemed a blessing became a curse, forcing me to witness every stage of our degradation with eyes that grew darker by the decade. I do not know if immortality is a blessing or a curse, when immortality means eternal darkness, eternal hunger, eternal loss. The false sun hangs above me as I write these words in my mind. It is a great glowing orb that illuminates this underground city, though whether the Dwemer created it or simply harnessed something older, I cannot say. Some kind of captured light, some lamp pretending to be a star. I can perceive it only as a vague warmth on my ruined face. Sometimes I climb as high as I can and reach toward it, my claws scraping at empty air, trying to grasp something that remains forever beyond my reach. It is not the sun. It will never be the sun, but it is all I have left of light. I know that I am losing the last fragments of who I was. Each day, each hour, each breath of spore-laden air strips away another piece of memory, another connection to my former self. Soon I will be like the others, the ones who have forgotten everything, who exist only in the present moment of hunger and instinct. Perhaps that will be a mercy. Perhaps forgetting completely is better than this half-life of fractured recollection and phantom pain. Perhaps the final death of my consciousness will be a release from the prison of awareness. But I am afraid. Even after everything, I am afraid of that final darkness. I am afraid of becoming nothing, of losing the last thread that connects me to the snow elf who once stood in sunlight and believed the world was beautiful. I try to remember beautiful things. I try to hold on to them like talismans against the void. The sound of my mother singing, the feel of my father's hand on my shoulder, the way the crystal towers caught the light at dawn, the taste of fresh snow on my tongue. But the memories slip away even as I grasp for them, dissolving like mist in the heat of a flame I can no longer see. This is the horrifying life of a Falmer in Blackreach. Not the violence, not the darkness, not even the transformation itself. The true horror is the knowing, the awareness that persists even as everything else is stripped away, the consciousness that remains just long enough to witness its own destruction. I was beautiful once. I was beloved. I was a person with a name and a history and a future. Now I am a monster that kills for meat and shrieks in the darkness and frightens children in stories told around distant fires. The light is gone, the memory is fading. The name I cannot speak grows quieter with each passing day. Soon there will be nothing left of me but teeth and claws and hunger. But today I still remember. Today I still feel the ghost of sunlight on skin that can no longer perceive it. Today I still mourn for the snow elf who walked into the darkness and never walked out. Today I am still, in some small flickering way, alive. Tomorrow I may finally be gone, and I do not know if anyone will notice the difference.